how do you started your journey in defensive? What basically make you fascinated about this particular vertical?
To be honest, I was an accidental cybersecurity professional. I've never wanted to be in cybersecurity.
Which vertical you find bit challenging? You started your journey with offensive.
It depends on the organization. Okay, see, offensive security is interesting.
There's a lot of resources are there. How to become a pen tester, how to become an analyst.
It's always a very puzzling thing to start a cybersecurity career. Okay.
And when we're talking about there's a lot of openings always there on the offensive side and all that.
I had to put so many pages in a resume, to show that I studied this. These are the certifications.
So what is this criminal profile concept?
How I would see criminal profiling is, profiling is not a new word. Okay. It always used to be there in homicide investigations.
Hi team, welcome to the session on Coffee with Prabh, and it is our first coffee shot we are doing actually early morning, and it is really a great time which we are going to spend with Shyam. And Shyam, thank you for taking out the time in the early morning. I know it's worth early morning and taking out the time for the society community of InfoSec. It's a great thing. And who are not aware about the Shyam is having a 3-time TEDx speaker and esteemed cybersecurity architect, researcher at GE Healthcare, where he specializes in memory forensics, data forensics and all that. And with this dynamic expertise, Shyam also renowned for his international cybersecurity speaker, author and professor who's shaping their minds and influencing a lot of people on their offensive and defensive security practice. The best thing is that his careers include impacting full stints with the global tech giants like Cisco, where he honed his skills on digital detective. And I think currently you're pursuing PhD also. Which actually with Shyam always continues push boundaries of the knowledge in cybersecurity. And see, we have two type of people in this industry. One is what they show on LinkedIn and what they do passively, and this guy is a person who does passively. And one day what happened, I was doing some of the content and all that, and I found his content is amazing. And there are very few people from India who doing a great job on the forensics and threat intel side. So and Shyam is one of them, and it is great. At least for me, it's a great feeling for me to have him on this platform, and I'm sure with his knowledge and wisdom, a lot of people who watching this podcast will get a great insights. Thanks Shyam, thank you so much for joining this early morning podcast.
Anytime, man. No problems at all. My pleasure to be part of your show today. Prabh, I think you've been doing a lot of very, very interesting work. I think your name is probably going to be synonymous with CISSP. Wherever I probably turn around, somebody is working on CISSP. You are the go-to person. Being in India and with the short time span, you've built a base and you built a reputation of not just selling a course but making it meaningful for people, right? So it's not paid to pass, it's paid to understand and then probably pass. So congratulations on that, man. So keep it going, more to come. So
Thank you, Shyam. Well, thanks for this great word, and coming from you, it's really mean a lot to me.
No.
And that also give me a lot of stress now because I have to make sure I have to maintain that momentum also. But Shyam, today is not my show. It is your show, and it is really a great moment for us to have you in this platform. And I'm sure it's one of the best podcasts on threat intels and defensive side we are doing today. So before we basically start with this session, Shyam, I always start this session with how do you started your journey in defensive? What basically make you fascinated about this particular vertical?
There were two things. To be honest, I was an accidental cybersecurity professional. I've never wanted to be in cybersecurity or either engineering. My passion was movie making. I was always wanted to be either an actor or a movie maker. So that was my whole point of my life. So, but yeah, things changed. I said, let me finish my engineering and still do something on these lines. But I stumbled across a cybersecurity course in 2010, I think, 9, where I was very new to HCL. I was working there with HCL, but was working with Cisco. So I was working on network security. That kind of intrigued me. And I met a lot of seasoned cybersecurity professionals who were doing something on the protocol side. But for me, it was fascinating, but I thought I could never get there because because it's too much for me. Because I've never focused on this side of things, right? I've just finished engineering and come.
Hmm.
But 2010, I stumbled across a very interesting course called CEH. Okay, there was basics of the basics. I've always been like, finish the engineering, come out. I like subjects what I want to do, so I spent a lot of time on those, but never
Hmm.
took seriously all these things. But the CH kind of changed my life because I think I ended up getting a 97 percentile or 98 for the first time. I think I was very fascinated because I enjoyed going every Saturday and Sunday. The courses were Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5. And
In Bangalore.
yeah, no, it was in Chennai. So,
Chennai, okay.
and I mean, I was very impressed. One of the trainers were there, he was teaching us, and I kind of liked it. But when I started deep diving into it, I figured out this is the thing to do.
Hmm.
And I started doing small pen test gigs in and around the company. Then probably moved to Cisco, where um, a very interesting thing happened, and I got an opportunity to work for the threat research team. Probably one of the only very few Indians or
Yeah.
Asians who worked from there. Then I got a chance to move to the Intel threat team, and I had a chance to work with Talos, Umbrella Research Group, and then the journey changed. So that's where I learned IOC gathering. Then I found a methodology for myself how to dive into IOC based hunting, then threat based hunting, and memory forensics. Memory forensics caught my eye. So it was something that not much were doing. I mean, not many were actually doing. And I figured, okay, why not do that? But here I am doing stuff what I like to do.
So you started your journey with offensive security. Now you're into defensive. Be practical. And I want to ask you this question. Which vertical you find bit challenging? You started your journey with offensive, and then you're now in a defensive, like you're doing investigations, forensics, and all that. So what is your viewpoint on this area?
It depends on the organization. Okay, see,
Mm-hmm.
offensive security is interesting, right? When you try to right, let's say we all craft payloads.
Mm-hmm.
Predict if you are in this vertical for years and years, predicting a threat is technically 50% easier than somebody who's coming new, because you know the patterns, you know how things are gonna go, what are the new payloads would come, the variations or the variants and everything. But defensive it's a whole new can of worms, man. To be honest, because architectures change at some point of time,
Mm-hmm.
and also organizations have different policies towards components, and then the laws come into picture, and also the issues with some of the physical components that we have today, right, in the market.
Mm-hmm.
The provisions to do forensic investigations, or the provisions to extract memory forensics, the laws that are protecting those devices, there are a lot of hindrance in and around doing it. So especially if it's a Linux device, there are a lot of limitations. Some of the products write their own wrapper around the Linux OS. So investigations are pretty much hard on those angles, is what I actually
Mm-hmm.
feel. So you'll have to come up with a wrapper every time. You have to write a framework in and around. Let's say, like, there are limitations on some of the open source memory frameworks that are there because it's Linux, and tons more, man. I think I would say I wouldn't complain of the question that you asked, but it's best of both worlds. One day it's green, the grass is green. On the other side, the other day it's not. So that's how I probably
So,
see it.
so, so can we say in this way, like when it come to the when you're doing offense, like when you're talking about the pen testing, red teamings, and all that, we have a predefined scope, and we need to, our goal is to find the resiliency or validation of the controls. On the
Hmm.
other side, if any incidents or some things has already triggered, you always have a pressure to find the root cause, because
Absolutely.
because in that case you cannot say, okay, we don't find anything,
Yeah,
because it's already occurred.
very true. But see, the point is there are two things in this aspect. You have to figure out if it's occurred or not, first of all. Okay.
Okay.
That's the main problem in today's forensic world also, if you see.
Mm-hmm.
How do you figure out? The threats have become so stealthy in the last so many years, you
Mm-hmm.
don't even know that the threat resides in your system or not. So you'll have to resort to advanced memory forensics techniques. Some of the IOCs may be holding good or true or bad, but there are a lot of aspects in and around it.
So,
Yeah.
Sham, like the thing is that when you're talking about the perspective about the defensive sides and all that. So, what is your perspective about 2024 and what you can see in 2025? The perspective of threats and how the defensive is going to handle these issues.
So 2024 was very an interesting, I would say a very interesting year, because if you see, let's see from the malware side of things every year,
Hmm.
there is a lot of reinventive techniques that happens. Okay. Today, there's only 1% or like 0.5% of the people write original code. Okay. Now with all this threat intel available everywhere, it's all usually a rehash of techniques, because if you see on the other side, the world grows in a way that these techniques are put into a MITRE attack framework where you know the entry point, exit point, the operations point. Now, some of these people, so there are some you can see the end to end how a thread actually operates for malware, especially. But for this makes it more convenient for somebody to edit it or upgrade it because they understand the entire flow of it. And this year 2024, I still I remember seeing all these same set of threats or like same set of threat actors, families, or improvements. For example, I would probably talk about Agent Tesla. I think I've been talking about Agent Tesla at least for the last 7 years. Okay. And that's a threat that still pushes boundaries. And a lot of phishing traffic has increased in 2024 with a lot of wishing in particular.
Hmm.
And if you also would see a lot of these threat actors, like let's say Agent Tesla, which is basically a remote access Trojan. Okay, you know what happens with the rat when you install on your system? It's gonna connect his attacker connects your system, and then he's gonna transfer data, do a bunch of activities. Now, these are also ported to mobiles into APK format. So if you see a lot of scams, especially in India, saying that this is your electricity board is probably calling you to cut, but that's a form of an APK. They say install this APK to pay your bill immediately. A lot of heavy pushing has been actually going on. Um, Still, Cobalt Strike kind of exists with word macros and all of those things, and I did see a lot of stealers in form of coil loaders coming in, dark gate activities, mal spam distribution still continues with wiki loaders, steel C malwares. These are all some new variants of it, but
Mhm.
the technique remains the same. Probably if you would see, right. I probably want to break down one of the threats if you want
Yeah,
to
please,
do
please,
that.
please.
So I think we'll take this route. Okay, let me break down one thread and I'll probably tell you what it covers in that. Okay, if you want to be a starter in this field, since we brought this topic, right, I'm just going to take one thread and I'm going to build it down into break it down, I'm sorry, into several parts, and I'll tell you what are the technologies that's probably involved, and if you are a fresher, you want to probably start, how you can start this.
Okay.
Okay, these are like threat. There are two worlds to it. Okay, the one, how did I know about this threat? For example, so I go to a blog post and I read a thread, the whole thread. Okay, so the threat basically, when they describe about the threat, they show you an email.
Hmm.
Okay, now they say that the threat came in form of an email, and if you look into the email, it usually has something we call it as hot words or keywords, which means purchase quotation. Okay, uh, email and malicious attachments. In email, malicious email attachments, you'll see a lot of keywords which are like purchase quotation, urgent, technical specifications. Okay, and sometimes you'll also see payment, delivery, attachments, and a lot of these keywords. And usually these mails are sent by purchase managers, and these are sent to receptionists, your sales team, marketing team. So these are your keywords. First, your primary form of attack, at least for the last 7, 8 years, is always been email. Because if I'm going to give you a payload and said, please execute it for me, nobody's going to execute it for me, right? Organizations, and these are specifically targeted towards sales deadlines or like end of quarters.
Very
So
good
you
point.
get a wonderful email. If you'd see Now, the writing aspect of these emails have also increased tremendously due to generative AI. Okay. But there will be some, if you observe in these emails, there won't be a picture perfect English. That's basically to avoid the NLPs and the processing systems and the NGFW that are there, and email gateways which scan for like particular content. So here it will be like off track in a way, probably to confuse people. Okay. Now they say that they're a company, they'll give you a phone number and all of those things. But the moment you open these attachments, right, you'll find files which are either Word or PDF or sometimes a zip file. Okay. So it could be an archive files. Now this is done. And then you will read the blog post. If you go further down, they'll tell you how the traffic came in. Okay. And what are the domains it contacted and what are the IPs it contacted. And then they'll tell you breakdown of what happens if you execute this file, what are the changes these files makes to your system, and what exactly happens and what it leverages. It'll tell you, is it leveraging a PowerShell? Is it downloading another file from the internet? Everything in a blog post is basically pictorically, fantastically represented, to be honest. Okay. Now, what can you learn from this, Prabh? You will learn tons of stuff inside it. First, it's very intriguing for you to look into the IOC. Okay. There are, let's say 15 IOCs. Yeah, let's say abc.com and 123.com. You can quickly open up VirusTotal or Whois, put about this domain and gather a lot of information about it. It will tell you which, where it is hosted, what is the ASN number. It will tell you what are the IP address, what are the other domains it's talking to. Is the server hosting similar domains? Who is the registrar? Who is the registrant? And if you compare with all those 15 domains, let's say, for example, you will get an intel together for this. For example, these domains are usually hosted by Namecheap. Now, Namecheap is a known offender at times for hosting. Namecheap allows, or probably threat actors purchase a lot of domains from Namecheap.
What is this Namecheap? Like,
so like GoDaddy, okay?
Okay.
It allows you to, buy a domain and register a domain.
Okay.
So we've seen several campaigns with Namecheap. Okay. So if you can just hit Google, you can probably see something called Namecheap, and then you can basically buy domains. It's a registrant, allows you to register a domain. Sometimes it allows you to host a domain also, which I'm not sure, right? But it allows you to host a domain. So this is the moment you look into it, you say, okay, this looks Namecheap, and all these domains are tied together in a way because they're either registered on the same date or there's a recurring pattern. So usually in some of these campaigns, when we bust these IPs, when we used to do in the past in the previous company, what we used to look at for patterns. Sometimes these domains would be spun every 23rd of the month. So
why?
Then that
any idea?
That's a pattern.
Okay. Sometimes
very 23rd of the month or every 15 days they'll be they'll spin a domain. And some of these domains will be dormant without traffic, and suddenly there'll be traffic. So this is all to break the patterns. Okay. So because the trick is, if you have very high spike in your traffic for the domain or like for the DNS resolution, some of the systems will be scared to block those domains in there because it's high traffic. Okay. But the reason is, you should probably see the before and the after part. How long this has been dormant versus how big this has been. See, all this information you can collect. Okay. Now, I just read one blog post and I had 12 domains with me. And I did a very basic check that you can even Google and find this out. That's how you started with open source threat hunting. You've started with it. You've started intelligence gathering already.
And Shyam, like you're talking about multiple times this blog, some viewers are basically students and they are aspiring people who want to make a career in defensive side and they want to, penetrate into threat hunting and all that. So do you recommend any blogs that, because Cisco Telcos basically has, they have their own blog which talk about Talos, yeah. Cisco Talos basically have their own, because I really like the writing things and all that. They break down everything in detail and explain things. And sometimes if the enterprise itself face any kind of a breach in the past which has happened, they also explain the entire case study. So do you recommend any top 5 or any recommendation you have?
Yeah, sure. I can probably give you Palo Alto's blogs are very interesting. Unit 42.
Unit 42, yeah.
That's a very, very detailed. if you really want to understand a simple breakdown of threats or the frequent, you should probably visit malwaretrafficanalysis.net. So it's
Okay.
called bradstrafficanalysis.net.
Okay.
It's a great learning thing, but you have to be very careful when you download the files because they are malicious files. Okay.
There's no free lunch.
Yeah, there's no worries. Be very careful with it because he uploads the real samples. Some
Okay.
of them are neutralized, some of them are not neutralized.
Okay.
That is a fantastic way to start, man. And
Okay.
I'll tell you something which most of them don't usually do it here. There's something called pastebin.
Yeah.
Okay, you should probably scrape pastebin.
Okay.
Pastebin has got some of the most interesting indicators of compromise. Somebody dumps it there.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's like who dumps it there, but it's very interesting. You should scrape slowly pastebin and see what's there inside it. The pastebin has a lot of IOCs like this.
Hmm.
So then you use tools like VirusTotal, Whois, and do a threat intel on it.
Hmm.
But if you start with this, but I'll tell you something, the most important resource for you to understand all these things is X. Follow X. There's nothing like
Twitter.
Twitter. So it's called X today.
Follow X doesn't mean okay, you're X, guys.
No. Twitter is the ultimate resource for threat hunting, malware analysis, and memory forensics.
Underground Twitter page and all that. Yeah.
No, it's you have all the tweets if you follow the right people, right? Unit 42, Palo Alto, Trellix has one. A lot of these Sentinel has one. Cisco has Talos. You can follow these things. They'll put all the latest blog posts, and you'll see a lot of people tweeting. You have to check for the right hashtag. So you have to look at payloads, malware. There are tons of people who do thankless job there. So they put a lot of stuff. I read Twitter every day. The moment I wake up in the morning, I don't check Instagram. I just read Twitter in the morning. And then I have a WhatsApp number for myself, or like a group for myself. It's just me and myself. So whatever morning that I cultivate, right, when drinking my coffee, I put it in
the link. Yeah, I do the same. Yeah.
Then I go read it. So simple, man. If you just read that, you get a wealth of information. New ideas come in for you. It's a field, especially malware analysis, memory forensics, hunting. All these fields, I think you have to be on top of your game every week or every month because you get outdated. So this is not like read once and do a job. It's something that you will go backwards because every month there are like 4 variants coming in. Every 2 months there are variants coming in. So I think that's something that that you should do. So you start with that, and then now you understand, right, what are the domains in it. So you can do OS open source threat hunting in that, and the file descriptive details are there, right? Now you take the file, you can do reverse engineering, which is malware analysis, or take the file, don't do this, or take the file and run it in a controlled environment, capture like a sandbox you run, and then you capture it, you can do memory forensics on it. So from one blog post, imagine the wealth of knowledge that you've gathered and what exactly you can do with it's there. Everything is there in the internet. Lack of resources, you can never complain there's lack of resources for you to learn today. I think people are giving it in a platter for you in the website. All you have to do is just pick and choose what you want to do. And then if you get another threat, like let's say you get another sample, sometimes people are not able to decode it. It's very simple. Just go back, see the way of writing that they're doing. Try to follow the same thing. You might get a breakthrough there. If you're not able to break through that malware, you have not failed anywhere. 2 things you've got. One is IOC, another is a blog post. You're done. Your research is not getting wasted at any point of time. So yeah, No,
you continue, Shyam. You're saying something. Yeah, go ahead.
I say this is the trick, that how you take a very simple blog post, do open source threat hunting versus malware analysis versus memory forensics versus understand the threat. Simple.
And Shyam, thank you for providing a great insight on this vertical about end-to-end threat hunting approach and all that. So Shyam, there's a lot of resources are there, how to become a pen tester, how to become an analyst, but there are very few folks are talking about this vertical, which include memory forensics and digital forensics and threat hunting. So if someone want to make a career in this, like, as you said, you want to become an actor. Now you become a good actors in terms of handling the threats and everything. And guys, do let me know in the comment box, should Shyam should start his YouTube channel, because the kind of wealth of information this guy has. So he should create some kind of videos where he should discuss about new insight and all that. Because Shyam, to be frank, your first student will be Prabh Nair.
And as
Mark my word, I will be the first person who's going to subscribe to the channel.
thanks, dude. That's an
Okay.
honor for me.
No,
So-
it's not. And see, I'm making a notes. See, I'm making a notes.
Okay. While you brought this point of actor, right? I hope I do not become a threat actor in the future.
You know what this is called? There is a group who used to pirate a lot of movies and all that. Tamil rockers, yeah. So I will discuss that case study also with you, because one of the group member, he was into the defensive sides and all that. I will discuss the case study with you for that also.
Sure.
We'll have a separate podcast for that.
Oh, absolutely.
So Shyam, like, can we expect from you to have a channel in the future where you can share this wealth of information, because people like you need for a society. There's a lot of resources out there. People sell those trainings and everything is so expensive.
I know.
Yeah, not everyone has a budget to pay money for that, right? So can we expect from Mr. Sundar to have something like that for which giving back to society?
That dude, I can do that. I mean, Prabh, I'll promise you probably in your podcast that I'll start a channel.
2025,
you can see
Shyam Sundar YouTube. Batman.
Yeah. And there's something related to Batman for sure.
Yes.
But not my name. But we'll do that. Absolutely. I'm game. I mean, I'm inspired by seeing you, inspired by you now to see it, to give it back to the society. We've been always giving it back to the society. When we teach these boot camps to college students, never take, it's free for them.
Exactly.
And I've always done that. I think I've been teaching boot camp classes on malware, memory forensics, ever since 2014. So it's been, now I've just reduced. I just do 3 or 4 and I travel abroad, to the Europe or the US. So yeah, I should do it, man. I mean, I think, guys, Prabh subscriber, you can take my word. I'll start one and 2.
Great. And Shyam, like, if someone want to make a career in threat hunting and all that, or malware and all that, how to start? If you can share 5 minutes view on that, it will be great.
Sure. I mean, it's always a very puzzling thing to start a cybersecurity career. Okay. My only advice to whoever starts a career, please don't look at the vast area of cybersecurity. Just don't come and say, oh my God, there's CISSP, there is governance, there is cyber laws here. And then I see there's people doing pen testing, people doing risk analysis, people doing, memory forensics, people are doing open source threat hunting. Never. Just take one thing at a time. See, the point with the beauty of cybersecurity, if you take coding, for example, you'll have to code. If you take testing, for example, you'll have to test. Okay. And if you're into something else, you'll have to do that one job. But cybersecurity is a very interesting profession, okay, where you get to choose what you want to do here. Okay, you want to do risk analysis, you can do risk analysis. You probably want to do. So there's a separate stream for everything. Okay. The interesting part, how you probably start. See, I usually give this advice to all the freshers who come and approach me. Okay. People I mentor. I used to run a program called Being Robin, a mentoring program. I think last 2 years I've not able to do that. So that's like helping university students who go to the US with their master's project. We build cutting edge honeypots. We've done a lot of crazy stuff in that. Okay. So I probably have to restart that thing again. So so how we start usually is, first of all, we don't know if you like the cybersecurity field or not. So don't go purchase a course and then halfway through you're stuck that you want to finish it. Never do that. Okay. That's the first things first. Now, what interesting aspect I would say is just go pick up a very simple book, let's say called a Hacker's Playbook or the Art of Pen Testing book, and just read through it. Now see where it exactly takes you. Okay. Now, do you like it? Do you really like this side of things? Then probably go sign up for a course like CEH. CEH is now has got a master where you can There is also a very interesting course by the INE, okay, EJPT pen tester. You can sign up for that. But first of all, that's your feet, that's your face that you want to do. Okay. Now, in that, you'll learn about the various aspects. Usually, you'll try to learn about what's threat modeling, what is honeypot, everything you'll probably know into it. The basics. See what interests you. Always, I would say, whenever you see a vertical, this should be a starting point. Now, my question usually, my suggestion is, I might be wrong, some people would not agree this. If you probably start doing penetration testing, right, it gives you the eye for detail, first of all. So you look at a component, there are several things that you look into a component. Let's say if I take a phone, if when you start learning pen testing, you'll have an eye for the component. What's the hardware involved, what's the software that goes in, when it was last updated, how you can probably look into the threats, what is the risk that is involved. See, you're covering everything here. The time to fix it, the time to break in, tons of stuff. So see if you like all these things. And then you can pick and choose a field always. Now, I'll tell you how malware analysis will come into this also, because when you do, let's say, red teaming, for example, okay, you will figure out that there's a particular component that needs to be exploited, for example, okay, but you don't have the tools in the market for it. What do? You end up becoming a tool author. And then you craft a very interesting payload that you're going to break. Technically, you've authored a threat. Okay. Now you know end to end how the threat basically works, because you know the system. You've crafted the payload in such a way that it either exploits a vulnerability or it creates a backdoor if it's not. Now, you will know next time if a malware sample comes, you'll know where to look for when you reverse engineer it. But the basic, but there are set of basic, there are certain things that you study in engineering which you don't know why you're studying, but it's all actually kept for a purpose that you study it. The first thing is basically operating systems. It's a Bible, worship it. Okay. If you see that, I think it's Wilbert's a book, or it's like the Red Dinosaur book that you see. If you see the book, worship it. That book comes until you take it to your grave. So operating system concepts is very, very important, because you need to understand memory, paging, dumping, all of that. It's why virtual memory, why a virtual memory swapping happens, why there is paging, where to collect the memory, why there's demand paging, all that you should need to know when you start with your forensics. Coding language is very, very important. And I would say Python's the easy bet if you want to do. But if you want to be very good with malware analysis and reverse engineering, a C or a C++ is a mandate. So you can start with Head First series. I love reading Head First series. I don't know, for some reason, because it makes, I'm a little slow at things. If you give me like this book, big book, I will not be able to. I want some illustration around things. Always been a comics fan, so I want some illustration always around. Head First is a very good way of learning. And then you can pick up the other books and learn, which will make you feel better. This will get you an introduction basically into cybersecurity. And you're equipped now either to pick up threat hunting side of things, malware side of things, or pen test side of things. And once you have a solid understanding, it's very easy for you to correlate with what is risk analysis, and all of these things. So yeah, it'll help you what is an asset. And I think it leans towards the management side of things also slowly.
Excellent.
That's my take on this. Yeah.
Okay. And when we're talking about, like, there's a lot of openings always there on the offensive side and all that. So if someone want to crack interview on the defensive sides and all that, so, what is the tips and tricks for the people who want to be optimistic about this interview? Yeah.
So you should see, my primary motive about these things is, okay, so earlier I'm talking about several years back, I always ran behind a resume where I had to put so many pages in a resume, to show that I studied these are the certifications. Make yourself available on the internet always. In the sense, you should have blog posts of decoding some of the malwares, or you should have your thoughts on hunting threats. You be there on the internet. It's easy, because there are companies that evaluate you. see, I've also interviewed for, I cannot name the company. This is one of the biggest companies that you'll actually think for. So, right? I mean, with 15 years of experience, I went in. You should know my confidence when I went in. What's the first question they asked me? Is there any threat is there any threat named after your name, or did you name something? I
Seriously?
was stumped. Okay. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
It just crushes your ego and then just puts you like this. It says you have a long way to go. See, I talk about agent Tesla. I might have found a variant of agent Tesla. So technically speaking, he's asking me, did you find any malware on your own in the wild, aside from scratch?
And that
Did you?
motivate you that okay, there's a lot to do,
This is an angle I never thought about.
Mm.
Okay. I think in one of my previous talks, I came this close to authoring, discovering something, but it was paused for several reasons. And then
Mm.
somebody else found out. Okay. So these are the things that remind you. So you'll have to go with the mind saying that if you're going for these companies, understand your threats, just don't randomly tell things.
Mm.
If you're talking about Emotet, know end to end about Emotet. Okay. Now, Emotet is basically a Trojan that comes in.
Yeah.
It comes in via email. It's always been operating in Word document. I think they got arrested 4 5 years back, but they've again, variants of it started coming. Now, you should be thorough in such a way that you should be able to talk about it. Second thing, when you go to these interviews, add points saying that this is what usually the market does.
Mm.
But I wrote a small utility, or I did something which I found interesting in this. Just add your piece to it. And you should also be confident to say that the internet never talks about these couple of points, but this is my humble research over the years. Talk about the pattern. You can probably talk that way. So you have to be confident with what you're saying. And my humble request, put what you know in a resume. Don't fill your resume with what was in the job description given. Never make that mistake. See, there are two things. One is credibility. The second thing is
Authenticity.
today it's a very close world. If one interviewer is not probably hiring you, another, it gets passed on easily. So your reputation is also at stake. So take it low, and you have to be very frank, or I would probably say be very transparent, is what I say. Uh, that's the one thing I say. No in-depth, end-to-end, whatever you're talking about. If you talk about, unless you don't know the keywords like AIML, I applied for threat, and don't use it. And I'll tell you something: if somebody is working on AIML, if you're good at threat hunting already, leverage AIML. Leverage how you can the models that are there, predictability aspects of it. Leverage all of those things. So yeah, in a nutshell, if you want to crack these interviews, look at the job description and look at your skills, map and see what you're good at and what you're not good at. Work on it and work a way around it to see how you can implement these things in an angle where you say, yes, I can improve on these things when I probably, but I've done something similar in the past. Don't tell that I did it in the past, but I don't know, I forgot, or like, that's the basic line, man. Because I'm sure you'll have the set of qualifications to qualify for the interview, but to crack it, this is the way to go forward.
And Shyam, like, thank you for sharing the perspective about the cracking interview and all that. I'm sorry I'm dragging you to more time for this
And it's okay,
podcast, but
okay.
it looked very interesting. And
No worries, man.
I was wondering, like as you said, to making career when offensive, you need to have this. Do you have any recommendations of the books or knowledge material they should use for upgrading their skills on the malware analyst or
Yeah,
digital
yeah.
forensics and all that?
I think I'll probably, I don't know if I can turn the camera and show you.
Hmm.
I always keep reading. If you see, this is the amount of books that I have here.
Wow.
Okay, there's another in my other library that I have. So I keep reading, man. These are like what I've kept on the left side of, you see here, is my essentials.
Hmm.
I go back to it if I need to read something, and it's so malware. I would suggest you guys to go look at practical malware analysis. That's the Bible for the books. And there are a lot of other courses. I think Abhijit Monata has also written a very interesting book on malware analysis, and Monapa is also a very famous
Yeah.
name. We used to be colleagues in Cisco. So
Hmm.
he is malware analysis course. He has also has a book. His
Hmm.
book has been translated into several languages too, Japanese,
Hmm.
this, that, and all. It's a very interesting. If you want to start with malware, go with it. Okay. The books that I would say, if you want to start with penetration testing, I would say The Art of Penetration Testing, and then go take a look at the Hacker's Playbook. Taking a look at hacking exposed and all is just a collection of. Be very careful. Just read whenever you see these books. Just look into it before buying it. The contents or downloading it. Buying is the right word. Don't download. You support the author by buying the book, because I'm also an author of the book, so that's why I had to put that point there. So that's one thing, because some of these books, what it'll be like, it's just a dump of case studies from everywhere. You will end up learning nothing. Okay. And the other book I would use, if you want to get into memory forensics, is a book called Art of Memory Forensics. That's a fantastic book. It'll be a dry read for you, because the first half is just concepts, pure concepts.
Concept is important. Na? Concept is build the foundation, I believe.
Yeah. That talks about paging. I'll give you a small tip here, guys, if Prabh, you're okay with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Whenever you're reading these books, right, if you feel that a chapter that you're not able to grasp it, quickly do on YouTube on the chapter and see somebody else would have explained it better. And you can always continue reading the book after that. I do this because I need multiple. My attention to detail is high, but my attention span is very less. So I can sit only for like 5 minutes and do something. Okay. And that's why I keep walking and working, standing and working. I keep doing something or the other. So when I read, sometimes I feel if it takes a dip, I quickly pause it, take that line and put it in YouTube and see if there's a better resource. I'll read it and again come back to the book. So this way that you have different perspectives about the same thing, right? So if you take threat modeling, for example, you can read a book. The level of detail that you see in threat modeling in YouTube is fabulous. Okay. Now, everybody builds threat models in different ways, right? But you have 0 level, 1, 2, 3, 4 flow diagrams. And the book teaches you what are flow diagrams and how you draw a trust boundary. But where all you should draw a trust boundary, YouTube teaches you. Okay. So breaking down it, I felt very interesting when I read, when I watched a wonderful podcast, not podcast, a video on threat hunting, okay, threat modeling. It was just saying at level 0 flow diagram, level 1 flow diagram, level 2 and level 3. Level 0 is nothing but a railway ticketing system. Buy ticket gives you ticket. Now level 1 talks about they're different engines. There's an engine that gives you a service of ticket info, ticket availability, where there's a backend that gives you train info. Now level 3 is the flow diagram for everything. Level 4 is the flow diagram of everything. So you should know all these things in order to know what are your assets that you need to save. I think what are the assets that are at risk? What are the components that are basically talking to outside services versus how would you add your risk score to all these things? Okay. I think I'll pass CSSP with this, what I know. So I don't know what is there in a CSSP course. Okay. But simple, look at this, right? I read that book. It taught me a lot of things, but suddenly I moved to this video. My clarity went multifold when I came back. So that's a good technique that you guys can use. Might work for some people, might not.
I'm advocate of I'm advocate of building concept, because I truly believe without concepts you cannot build the base.
Absolutely.
And what we see threat modeling in theory, it's completely different from what we do in practical. It's okay to teach someone threat modeling, but it really required a lot of efforts, and there's no much documentations also talk about practical of
exactly. Yeah, so everybody uses the buzzwords of stride and pasta, right? But nobody, you cannot actually. That's where your layering concepts help. Every cybersecurity approach is basically layering. I usually tell it's how, like a music composer composes a song. That's how you architect a cybersecurity product or evaluate a product.
Exactly.
You have a base, and then basically you have a base cards. Then you have next your strings going in. a couple of bass, again, like other like small drums, tweakers, then violins. It's layering of music, or like a cake layering, how I would say it.
Agree.
So that's how you should do threat modeling also. But any cybersecurity concept, whatever books I've mentioned is the basics for you. I think you'll find your way after that. So
Excellent. So in when you're talking about in threat hunting or memory forensic, digital forensics, one thing is very important. You said in my previous discussion is improving your criminal profile.
mm,
So what is this criminal profile concept? Because I've seen some posts around on LinkedIn where they shared about they did the threat hunting, they investigate the emails, and this is how the style of writing was there. So they use this word called criminal profile. Why it is a buzzword now in forensics?
okay, criminal profile is okay. So how I would see criminal profiling is criminal profiling is not a new word. Okay,
Hmm, hmm,
in it always used to be there in homicide investigations.
hmm.
And the criminal profile is nothing but trying to tie evidences to past murders and find out if the criminal has a profile already. Okay.
Okay.
So usually criminal profiling is nothing but tracing back to evidences versus the attack mechanisms and patterns that they use. Now, here what happens with criminal profiling for this whole thing is as I mentioned in the start, right? Every threat actor has a unique way of operating.
Hmm,
And a threat actor basically leaves a lot of trails. So there's a signature move where they'd spin a PowerShell and living off land binaries, which means the payload that they drop never lives on the disk. It lives only in the memory. If
okay.
you take Microsoft Windows, for example, has a lot of LOL binaries, which by
Agree.
default how the operating system works. So they tag along with that and so this is a technique. Now, if you go and trace this technique, it will show you saying that, okay, this is one technique employed by 5 threat actors.
Hmm,
Now, again, you go back in the past saying these threat actors, how many other types of malwares they have, deployed in the last 3 years? What are their patterns? Do they come every day? Do they drop every week or every month? Again, you get a idea of what's basically happening there. Okay, so this is criminal profiling. So you get the intel from your threats, tie it back to a threat actor, and once you try it back to the threat actor, you can figure out if it's actually the real threat actor or somebody's inspired by the threat actor. Usually, that's how this homicide killings also happen, right? If you go see homicide detective stories, the patterns will be the same of one guy. But if
okay.
you see that guy would either be deceased or he'd be in jail, that guy's pattern would have inspired this guy to do, but there'll be a twist to it. That's exactly how the whole thing works here also. That's criminal profiling. So criminal profiling helps you to probably, tell or understand saying that, hey, you know what, this is how a threat actor kind of operates and this is what happens.
That's great. And
Yeah.
with this perspective, like what are the some of the if you talk about some of the most intriguing cybersecurity cases you worked on digital detectives or digital forensics, can you share one example? Like it can be great insight for the freshers.
Yeah, there are tons. I mean, I think my first day at work was only interesting when we stepped into research.
Uh-huh.
I think I ended up writing a blog post within 15 days of joining the research team.
Uh-huh.
It was a huge thing where one of the most interesting cases that we worked on was this is also threat intel kind of an work
Uh-huh.
where we saw a lot of websites we got a lot of intel on websites getting registered on a particular date. Okay. So that was a threat criminal profiling. So went through that and I saw that the pattern was every month on a particular date, 2 days, 150 domains were registered. And when you went and saw those domains, also you call it as a parked page, basically. A parked page is saying that the website is coming soon.
Uh,
That's called as a parked domain or a parked page, it's called.
uh,
A parked domain is nothing but today Prabh buys a domain and he decides to use it after 2 years.
hmm,
But he'll put a banner saying page is coming soon. That's a parked domain. But what we saw was very interesting. That had some Chinese website, a magazine. It was a fully functioning website.
hmm.
But the same website was there every, like close to 400, 300 domains.
Okay.
And then we were just going through it, studied the intel on it, and who was responsible for it. We found out the registrant name, the date registering patterns, the template styles. And then suddenly what we thought was we also wrote a very interesting small script that keeps checking for these pages to see if the
Hmm.
content changes. One fine night, suddenly one of these pages turned into a banking domain. So that was like a mass phishing campaign. Okay, that was something very interesting.
Polymorphism.
Polymorphic. Another interesting case we worked with the team was, this was very interesting. Okay, we got a screensaver file. Okay, somewhere this was while we were doing one threat intel, we got one set of domains that was getting blocked for a customer,
Hmm.
and we were interested. So always what we do is we investigate the domains first and go to virus total to see what it hosts.
Hmm.
There we'll find some interesting file, immediately pick it, and we'll reverse engineer it. You see the trick. If you reverse engineer it, it can go like this. We found the file and then this happened and this talks to the domains, or you can write a blog post in two ways. We saw a domain, we downloaded a file and we were able to write it. So you can write a blog in two ways.
Wow.
So when we saw that, we were very excited because we saw a very interesting file. It's a .scr file that we saw. And the team and we were worked on it, and it was actually more tough and also a very interesting case. We found out what the payload it was dropping, okay. But when the payload opened, all your notepad, everything crashed because it had close to 7 to 8 lakh lines of code inside it. And we're not able to find out what exactly the code is. And then one of our teammates, one of the guys, he worked on this, and he wrote a small script where he kept identifying junk characters, removed one by one, and the total line of code is only 3 lines.
My God.
That is the file that gets down. That is the code that downloads through PowerShell actual malware.
But Sham, one thing is that, from your talk, one thing I for sure is you need to have a patience when you deal with such kind of a thing. You cannot be aggressive. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely. Dude, in threat intel and especially in malware analysis, you can never be aggressive because most of the times you'll hit a dead end. And how do you take it after that is something what that. And I was involved in catching during COVID, one of the most interesting cases. That was an old inspiration of a sample, but there was no reference material at that point of time. Use of macros 4.0. There was one Excel sheet that was hiding inside it, and all your AV engines was flagging it, so they allowed the files to go. So this was dangerous. Then I found there was an Excel sheet hiding inside it. I found a way to unhide the Excel sheet through code. And the most interesting, the script, right, which downloaded the malware, was not inside the Word document or not inside a macro. It was hiding inside an XML setting, which allowed it to trigger. This is one of a breakthrough samples that and it took a lot of patience, man. It took 4 days. I'm not kidding. I would have technically sat for 48 hours. Writing scripts, needed a lot of patience. It was very alarming. Your firewall is flagging it, your product flags it, and the email looks little dicey, but where is the sample?
No idea.
When it runs, where is it downloading it from? So we have to resort to static analysis because we didn't have time for dynamic analysis. There are like thousands of files coming in at the same point of time. Contents look bad. Some of the contents look good. It was very confusing. You have to have your mind space to be patient. Yeah, you have to be absolutely. You cannot be.
One small wrong move can impact the decisions.
Absolutely. So you have to have a lot of patience. You cannot be racy. You cannot, the more you're patient, it gives in you more, this profession. So that's yeah.
But do you think so? Like, as there's a emerging of AI is there now, machine learning is coming. Do you see people talking about a lot of buzzword around productivity by using AI and ML? What I learn is that AI can replace the uniformity of the work, but cannot replace the creativity. So, what is a viewpoint on that? Like, will the AI will be useful in forensics, or if you're thinking from a investigation perspective, like let's say example, I want to investigate AI and all that, and in the AI, the base is your black box models, where you don't have visibility about how the system models works and all that. So, how do you see that perspective?
See, AI. See, I have very limited exposure to that, but I'll talk about something which is a differentiation factor. Okay. Now, AI, I don't know about. See, I've also used AI, this generative AI, So it gives you a very standard response. Okay, 2 times I asked it a problem to solve it. Third time I ended up solving it and I told it also. And it
Mm.
thanked me saying that, see, AI has ground up approaches like API. It'll look at API breaking or it'll look at API usage. But if you want to do something from scratch, it cannot do it.
Mm.
It's my humble opinion. Today, in terms of coding, if it asks for a different parsing logic or something, it kind of struggles. Okay. Now, cybersecurity AI can be very, very useful in one area, which is of reading threat intel.
Okay.
That is something that I would always give it to AI, because the predictability aspect and preventive threat management becomes a huge plus with AI. Okay,
Mhm.
because you will have all those tons of logs with you, and it also helps you to find out the likelihood of a threat occurring. So that is massive for AI. See, and you can, let's say, I would say that AI can, if you give it a list of parameters or IOCs, AI would still be able to use the historic data set and tell you what could be the threat actor and all those things.
Mm.
Nuances of digging deep and doing something and the satisfaction when you get that, you'll probably not get it. You definitely need a human touch in analysis. See, again, AI can be applied to sandboxing. Okay.
Mm.
Now, there are a lot of services like Google for something called any.run. Okay. That's a malware sandboxing service. You can upload a sample. It uses a little bit of AI in it, and also it uses a lot of MITRE integrations to it. It
Okay.
tells you what sort of threat it is. So AI can play a role, but end-to-end investigation of malware or a threat hunting or that, I think it is still got a long way to go. I don't want to comment or deny that. But if you have the right parameters, AI can always trigger a playbook or a run book also.
Okay.
So it is good. But one more thing, you need cybersecurity professional to author that AI model also. A data scientist can never, you need to have the security sense to do these things. So it's a best of both worlds, is what I'm saying. So you have to wait for it and see. I can see some of the use cases that we can do right now, but I don't know how the way forward for that at least would be. So yeah.
To be frank, you made my day. Actually, it is basically for me. It's a great morning
Absolutely.
because I got plenty amount of notes, which make me feel okay. I've done nothing in defensive. So now from this podcast, at least, I'm going with some kind of a vision what I need to do in defense. And do let us know, guys, in the comment box what is your learning. So what is next, Sam? Like like we are just winding up this podcast. What is the best piece of advice you ever receive in a career, and what is the same what you want to convey to the people who watching this podcast? What is your take at the closing speech you want to share in one
when,
line?
whenever you feel that you've achieved something, right? Step out of your comfort zone and go meet somebody in a conference.
Mm-hmm.
You will understand how much you have to learn more. That's what I care. And then don't take any of your success to your head here.
Mm.
Stay grounded. The more that you share and learn with people, right? The more you'll know that there's a long way to go. Uh, every day may not be your day. I always go by these words in my entire life.
Mm.
Why do we fall, Bruce? Because we learn to pick ourselves up. So be ready to fail. Be ready to accept your failures. Every day cannot be a day, but I'll tell you something: what you are is what you are. So be what you are.
Exactly. And where can a listener follow your work or get in touch with you?
You can just Google me, Shyam Sundar Ramaswamy, and I
Mm.
write a lot on LinkedIn.
Mm.
I have some of my TED talks.
Mm.
You can type YouTube also, Shyam Sundar Ramaswamy. You'll see a lot of my talks there.
And you'll see the next year his channel also.
As you can see my channel also, yeah. So that's gonna come up soon. So
And can
maybe,
I share your LinkedIn profile in the description box so
yeah, you can,
people can, yeah?
you can go for it. You can just have to hit Google, and I think I have a good footprint in Google so far. So
Definitely, definitely.
yeah, you can just look me up in Google, and you'll get my profile. You'll see everything everywhere. So
And the last thing is that Sham, so guys, do let us know that shall we disturb again Sham for the next podcast on threat intel, because this is a live session, so I can ask him anything. He will not say no to that.
I'm
So-
happy, dude. Let's work out something and see if we can. Why don't we do one thing? I mean,
Yeah.
let's see. Let's do a live session instead of like the chatting.
Yeah.
Let's go hands-on.
Yeah.
So you can randomly ask me something, or we'll discuss about a particular threat, and we'll show from ground up how we dissect it. That'll be useful for like a master class. We'll do for threat intel, halting, and something interesting. Let's do it. We'll find
definitely. And 2025 will start with that initiative only. What is
Yeah,
it?
we'll start that. We'll do that in 2025. I'm up for
Thanks. Thank you, Shyam. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking out the time for this particular session. And I found really useful this podcast. And trust me, this is not just another podcast. We talk about what is threat intel. You literally deep dive into the core areas of threat intel, and I'm sure people got a lot of insights. From this particular, at least no, I'm not talking about others, but I got a lot of insights from this particular podcast, Shyam, and I'm really grateful that you're taking out the time in a weekend. It's not easy. I know you're currently working on some projects and taking out the time as you committed. And thank you so much, Shyam bhai.
No worries, buddy. Thank you, Prabh, for having me on your podcast show. It's an honor for me also to be there. A lot of people look up to you for what you do. Keep doing it. Push the bar high. We need a lot of people like you to educate others in the industry. So keep flying high. All the best to you. Anytime, any help you need, please reach out to me. Always happy to help you.
Thanks, Sam. And those who are watching this podcast, if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar project. Thank you so much, guys. Bye. Take care.